My name is Brandon Richard, and I'm going to give a presentation on the psychology of elite athletes. So, for this presentation, I'm going to talk about sports psychologists and athletes, the definition of an elite athlete, and some of the psychological characteristics of elite athletes. I'm also going to talk about burnout and perfectionism because I think they're very important when talking about the psychology of an elite athlete. And I'm also going to talk about some coping strategies that elite athletes may use. What do sports psychologists do? Sports psychology, according to the American Psychological Association, is defined as a proficiency that uses psychological knowledge and skills to address performance and well-being of athletes, developmental and social aspects of sports participation, and systemic issues associated with sports settings and organizations. Sports psychologists can help athletes with several different issues. And for this presentation, I'm going to focus on the three issues, including confidence, anxiety, and motivation. The definition of an elite athlete. Definition of elite athlete, according to Singh's medical dictionary, is an athlete is a person who is currently or has previously competed as a varsity player, individual or team, a professional player, or a national or international player. There is not truly a consensus on the definition of an elite athlete, but for this presentation, I'm going to go with this definition. There's several definitions that have been used that can also be true, but there's really no consensus on what the definition of an elite athlete could be. I'm going to talk about some of the characteristics of an elite athlete, which include confidence, anxiety, and motivation. And these are also some of the issues that a sports psychologist can help an elite athlete with. Confidence. According to Michael Young, confidence is an emotion or state of mind associated with athletic success. Athletes tend to have very high levels of confidence, according to Jones and Hardy. An elite athlete should always act confident even if they are really not. By doing this, elite athletes do not let their opponents know their weaknesses and can build up their own confidence this way, according to O'Connor. By having an appearance of confidence, people from the outside will believe that the athlete truly has confidence in themselves and their abilities, even if they really do not. This in turn can actually help an athlete build up real confidence in themselves by simply giving an appearance that they are confident, and if others around them believe that the athlete is confident. Anxiety. Anxiety is defined as the emotional or cognitive dimension of physiological arousal, according to Ray and Wise. Dealing with anxiety is an important characteristic of an elite athlete. An elite athlete's ability to cope with pressure and anxiety is an integral part of sports. If an athlete cannot deal with an anxiety, they will not have much success in sports at all. This is also evidenced by a report that 50% of consultations among athletes at the Olympics related to stress or anxiety related problems. So stress and anxiety are some of the major issues that elite athletes deal with. Each athlete possesses an optimal zone of anxiety for performance known as the individual zone of optimal functioning. The individual zone of optimal functioning is the amount of anxiety where an athlete performs at their best. Too much anxiety has been shown to negatively affect performance, but if an athlete is in their individual zone of optimal functioning, the results will be positive. It varies on the individual how much anxiety an individual will be at their best, so a certain amount of anxiety can actually help an athlete to perform better. Motivation. Athletes must have something that motivates them to continually improve and to overcome any adversities they face. Motivation is the general desire or reason for acting a particular way. In order to reach the highest level of sport, motivation in some form is required to help an athlete achieve their goal. Motivation can either be intrinsic or extrinsic. Intrinsic motivation is an athlete's personal drive to reach a goal. Extrinsic motivation is from an outside source, such as parents, coaches, or teammates. Research links high levels of motivation with greater levels of achievement, according to Hardy and Parfit. Intrinsic motivation is a greater indicator of achieving success in sports. Elite athletes have significantly higher motivation than non-athletes and recreational athletes. Intrinsic motivation may be a greater indicator of a success because it's their own athlete's own personal reason for trying to become better. Extrinsic motivation may not be as helpful because an outside source can be motivating, but it may also just bring more pressure to an athlete, and that can negatively affect their performance. Burnout. Burnout has been defined as a state of mental, emotional, and physical exhaustion brought on by persistent devotion to challenging goals. For an athlete, the perception of not achieving a goal and the thought of imbalance between costs and benefits lead to feelings of inability and emotional suffering, which increase the risk of burnout. Burnout syndrome is arising from an athlete's appraisal of sport performance and reflected by three indicators: depletion of emotional and physical energy, reduced sense of accomplishment, decreased interest in sport performance. Depletion of emotional and physical energy is when an athlete feels worn out from expectations set for themselves or by others. Also, an athlete may not be able to keep up with the training required of them to get better, so it just leads to a depletion of energy, physical and mental, which can lead to burnout. A reduced sense of accomplishment is when an athlete may no longer feel as satisfied when performing in general, or they may not feel as satisfied when they actually achieve their goal. Achieving a goal no longer gives them the sensation that they once felt. And this can also lead to a decreased interest in sport performance. This is when an athlete is no longer invested in the sport or improving their performance. It can be due to not improving as much as they once did or not enough to remain competitive. So when an athlete starts to feel this, they may not want to compete in the sport that they once loved, and this can lead to burnout as well. Perfectionism. Perfectionism is a personality trait that has emerged as a risk factor for burnout. Perfectionism reflects a commitment to exceedingly high standards combined with a tendency to critically appraise performance accomplishments. Perfectionism has an energizing effect on achievement. However, an obsessive mentality with flawlessness towards perfection can also lead to burnout. Trying to be the best you can be a good thing in sports. But when an athlete becomes so obsessed with being perfect, it may negatively start to affect their performance. And when an athlete is so obsessed with perfectionism that it affects their performance negatively, it can also lead to burnout. Coping strategies. Elite athletes should employ different coping strategies in order to not reach burnout. I'm going to talk about two specific coping strategies, which include self-talk and self-regulation. Self-talk. In sport, self-talk can be divided into two categories: instructional and motivational. Motivational self-talk includes using cue words such as come on, calm down, which can be considered goal-directed, creating deactivated states. This just means that an athlete will calm themselves down or get themselves pumped up or motivated by using the cue words such as come on or calm down in both situations. Instructional self-talk can be something such as bend your knees, which can be classified as goal-directed self-talk regulating cognition and behavior. By giving them themselves such a specific goal or task, it will help the athlete get more in focus to perform the specific thing that they have to do in their sport. Such as saying bend your knees, it can help an athlete get in the proper form position to perform a jump or something or anything related to their sport. Goal-directed self-talk interventions may be efficient in enhancing an athlete's performance through making changes in the way they think. By using simple cues, an athlete can get themselves in the right mindset to help improve their performance. Self-regulation. Self-regulation is the ability to manage one's stress and anxiety in high-pressure situations, and is a skill needed in order to excel at the highest levels of sport. The elite level is stressful, and many fail to achieve success at the highest levels. Some strategies for self-regulation include engage in self-control and self-observation, reflect on performance, and adapting strategies for future regulatory attempts. Engaging in self-control and self-observation can be done by using self-talk to help control oneself. Making observations to how they're performing and what affects them. An athlete can find out how their performance is being affected by the little things around them. By reflecting on performance, an athlete can figure out how certain things that they did affected them during their performance. An athlete can determine what and how it contributes to better results, or they can also figure out what would contribute to negative results. By adapting strategies for future regulatory attempts, an athlete can use past experience so they can approach future events to improve their performance and not make the same mistakes that they once did, or just improve on some things that they could have done better. Sports psychologists play a very important role in helping an athlete. They can help improve an athlete's mental and physical capabilities, which in turn can lead to better performance for the athlete. An elite athlete is an athlete who performs at the highest level. And some psychological characteristics of elite athletes include confidence, anxiety, and motivation. Confidence is a very important factor for elite athletes because confidence is needed for an individual to succeed at a high level. Anxiety is also very important because there is much stress involved with trying to reach the highest level of sport. And if an athlete cannot control or keep their anxiety in check, they will not be successful. Motivation is also key because individuals who are not motivated will not have the drive to reach the high level of sport. A negative result of not keeping an athlete's mental capacity in check or regulated is burnout. And burnout is when an athlete is mentally and physically exhausted. And perfectionism can also lead to burnout. It is important for an athlete to have coping strategies to deal with the mental and physical challenges they face. Self-talk is a useful coping strategy to help get an athlete in the right mindset. And self-regulation can be used to also get an athlete in the right mindset and also keep their performance in check and see what they need to do to improve on their mental and physical performance.